Good evening, and if you're just tuning in, you are listening live to UFO Paranormal Radio Network, and this is the Angel Rock. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. A few housekeeping things, first of all, out of the way. If you are listening, you can be listening on 105.3 out of Mississippi and 107.7 out of New Orleans, Louisiana on FM. We are also carried on every obscure app, regular app, big app, you name it, to listen, as well as there's always video copies of the shows on YouTube and Facebook. So my name, like I said, is Lorilei Potvin. I'm a Canadian psychic medium, crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor. I'm also a registered nurse. I am a budding animal communicator. I'm well versed in near-death experiences, having studied them for over 40 years professionally and personally, and having had one as a toddler myself, and very well versed in the paranormal. I always say we never went looking for it. It found us in our previous home, and we've shared our story on the Travel Channel's Paranormal Survivor. It's season 4, episode 9, called Demonic Hauntings. So a few housekeeping things before we jump into our amazing guest, who's been on here quite a few times. You guys love her, so I will introduce her in just a second. She's so patiently waiting. Hi, I see Z's and Dragons here. Hello, Kevin, a fellow Canadian out on the east side. If you guys want to join the conversation, 80% of our global audience is audio only. We do broadcast at this network to every country in the world. It's been around for 25 plus years, UPRN. So how you do that is there's a few places you can head to. You can go to my Facebook profile, which is Lorilei Potvin. It's public. YouTube, The Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin. We are also streaming on UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio on Facebook and YouTube. You can go there as well. We're on Canada's Most Haunted. I am streaming to The Angel Rock on Instagram. I'm not ignoring you over there, I promise. They don't integrate all the comments into the same place as I'm producing the show, so I will try and pop back and forth to say hello, or you can join us on one of the other channels, and then I will instantly see your comments, because if you've been here before, you know that this show, excuse me, and my second show that I co-host on Thursday nights, called The Thing at the Foot of the Bed, with my very good friend and very gifted angel channel and medium, David Hansel, at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You know that both these shows are very audience participative. I always tell my guests when they come on that I have a very awesome audience that's here that participates. They're well-versed. They ask great conversations. Otherwise, my amazing guest, Sonya, and I here would be having a wonderful conversation just on our own, which we can do, and we do, but you guys add so much to it. Now, let me make sure that I have covered everything here. If you want to watch us on TV, what you can do is we do have our own TV channel. It's over on Roku. So you're going to go to the channel store. You're going to type in UFO space P as in paranormal. There's a drop-down list. We're about the third or fourth one on the drop-down list down. You're looking for UFO space paranormal and United Public Radio, and you can watch us on TV. I think that's everything I remembered that I wanted to say. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. We got Sonya says hello. I was going to let Sonya tell you how to watch on her pages because I didn't check the titles, but she'll tell you in a sec. Hang on. No, I lost my train of thought here. Give me a sec as I get distracted easily. It's hot in Canada. We should complain. We wait for this heat, don't we, Sonya?
It's been hot. Today is the worst for us out west. It's been humid, which is unlikely in our area. It's usually dry, so already we're not used to the humidity. But today it just like
get it. It gets so cold. As you guys do. Let me read your bio for people that I don't know how they couldn't know. You've been on my show many times, but Sonya Roy is an extremely gifted bilingual Canadian medium, master holistic healer, including she's a master Reiki healer and shamanic practitioner, as well as an author of numerous incredible books. Sonya was previously an RCMP officer. For those of you halfway across the world that don't know what that is, have you ever heard of the Mounties, Royal Canadian Mounted Police? That's what Sonya did. And uses her life experiences and knowledge, as well as exceptional abilities, to help guide and teach others, and to help people to empower them and recognize their divine self. So tonight we're going to be talking about her brand new book. I'm going to let her read the title so I don't screw it up. It is hot off the presses, you guys. You are the first to hear all about this. and it's very much needed. Welcome, Sonya.
Thank you. The title of the book is Narcissism, 12 Steps to Successfully Heal and Flourish from Narcissistic Abuse. So the focus is really on, being able to have not just recover or just, get away from the narcissist, but the damage that they do affects you mentally, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, and even to the point of physically. So it's important to, after you leave them, to take the time to heal. And it's not easy to find someone to help with that.
It's not. And I would just let me say hi to everybody before we jump into conversation here. Where can people watch if they want to pop over to your spots too, there where you're streaming?
Well, they can watch on my YouTube channel. Sorry.
That's okay.
Redo Spiritual Wellness Center, or on my Facebook page.
Sonya,
again, Redo Wellness Spiritual Center.
Okay, well, let me say hi to everybody. We got Z Sun Dragon or Kevin. Julie Evans, evening from England. It is 11:30 at night over there. Julie's one of our regular watchers, and I'm very grateful that she stays up to hang out with us. So late over there, we've got Contessa Martins. And let me see if I'm missing anybody. Oh, and Julie, I wanted to add, I think most of us have encountered these people, but she says, oh, my ex was a narcissistic person. 10 years I lived with it, and physical abuse too. And I'm very sorry you've gone through that, Julie, and that you were away from that. It sounds like if it's your ex, and hopefully you can find some information here to help heal. I have been around narcissists my entire life and working still on separating myself from them. So I was really excited about this book, Sonya.
Thank you. Well, I think that I did some research out there, right? I mean, my mother was a narcissist, and then both men who fathered children with were both narcissists. So I came to a point in my life when I realized, hang on a second, I'm just going to keep repeating this over and over. I need to stop and figure out, why does this keep happening, right? Why is if there's a pattern, you should be asking yourself, why is this pattern repeating? Why am I not understanding? What am I not getting that I need to relive this over and over again? And I wanted to be a ray of hope rather than, focusing on the narcissist. I want to focus on the people who have been their victims. And one of the chapters in the book, I specifically address, who are they looking for?
I'm glad you brought that up, because what I was going to add is, my mother, narcissist. I've been with partners that are narcissists. And it gets to the point, being very honest, where you almost don't trust yourself to be able to see because it's like a vicious cycle, because you end up being in such an abusive relationship, whether it's physical, all what you mentioned. And then because of the love bombing in the beginning, you think, oh my gosh, is this like too good to be true? Somebody that's going to love me and treat me properly. And you get to the point where you're just like, time and time again, you go, I don't trust myself anymore. Like, how do I know? How do I see through this? Your book is vital, because I've been saying this, like, it almost seems like we're running into an epidemic of this type of behavior. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this.
I have to say that with social media, it sure has inflated their ego, and as giving them a lot more importance. And so whereas before they would eventually deflate, right? So the way a narcissist works is they promise you grand things, and they're going to be amazing, and they have such a promising future, which works when they're in their 20s. Well, by the time they get their late 30s, it's shit or get off the pot, buddy. You got
and they're always everything you need in the moment, and that's how you fall into it, right? And they love bomb you, for people to understand it, right? It's just if it's too good to be true, and we're not being negative, but they're human beings, right? So they're going to have faults.
If it's too good to be true, it's because it is. A real person will have, no, but it's true. And this is the thing about a narcissism. We have to be really, really blunt and really honest with people. They need to hear the truth and hear it in black and white and understand. So, and in the book, I'm like, if you think that it was so great, they'll come back, forget it. that's all part of their tactics, that they manipulate you, because at first they'll promise you the moon, the sky, the universe, and they'll be so charming that you think they'll actually deliver on all this, right? So but whoever they were when you met was just a mask. It wasn't who they truly are.
It's almost like a paper thin shell. Really, it is. That's
yes,
all it is.
it's very fragile. Yeah. And I also clarified that they're not psychopath. A psychopath is actually born with a physical defect that that prevents them from being able to have empathy and emotions. And that's why they're psychopaths. So for psychopaths, there's an actual physical reason why they are the way they are, as opposed to narcissists.
I think it's in the part of the brain called the amygdala that has emotional regulation and also impulse control and
as opposed to the narcissist, it's completely caused by the nurture, the environment, and how they grew up and how they were treated. So you can grow into two different types of narcissists. The one that was the golden child and told that they could accomplish anything. And sorry, I'm very hot. They can accomplish anything they want, and they never get told no, and just they don't want to they don't want to shatter that self-esteem, so they only get told that they're good, they're fantastic, and they're wonderful. And that makes the self-esteem very weak and not strong, because they build no resiliency. They build no ability to handle someone saying, yeah, no.
Yeah, what they build from is from being fed a constant stream of how amazing, how wonderful, how incredible you are, right? And they're celebrated a lot for the accomplishments that they do. So you're right. You can't handle real life being raised that way. There's no way you can.
Exactly. And that's where their ego and their self-esteem and everything is so fragile. And because it is so fragile, the moment that it is threatened, they will lash out and they will attack you in one way or another, depending on what they're going to use from their toolbox. They develop their toolbox over.
Oh, go ahead, and then I wanted to ask you a question. Go ahead. Sorry.
The toolbox gets developed over like decades, right? And it gets really tested out, I'd say, in early teenage years and early 20s. So by the time they're in their mid-30s, I'd say, they're really good at it. Because now they've tested it out and they know what works, they know what doesn't. They know I need to wait this long, and when she starts saying this and acting like this, I got her hooked, and right there. So they're easier to spot. They actually, when they're younger, you just think they're just bad people. You know what I mean? But then you can only spot a narcissist with time. And the only way to spot one is to take the time to get to know them. And because they're so charming, and I've read many testimonies of people, and they usually tell me that it was very quick. We got married within 6 months of meeting each other.
I always say they could sell ice to Eskimos.
Oh, yes. It's amazing. They're really good at what they do. And that's why I touch on a chapter in the book to let the victims know, which, by the way, a narcissist can be any race, any religion, any, male, female, whatever.
Economic status, you name it.
Yep. They come from everywhere. They're like cockroach. You can find them.
So the other thing that I've seen, because, right, having learned long ago the term narcissism, obviously it was always about, wasn't it the Greek mythology Narcissus, who was always looking in the mirror about how beautiful I am and blah, 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 right?
The river, yeah.
Right. So that's what I always thought it was. And then years ago, I was doing some research. It was when I was doing my show every night on a previous network. And I happened to come across something about narcissism, and I started reading this. I went, holy crap, was this person a fly on the wall when I grew up? Like, this is what this is. And I really dug into it and went, holy crap, I've been surrounded by this my whole life. And it's almost because I didn't know any different. Like, it was like this felt normal. Yeah. And I'm still working on these issues. But my point is, where I was going to go and ask you, in your research, I have found that the majority of professionals have said they can get a narcissist only so far, but they will never ever be able to cure it to the point, if you will, of being like a regular human being. Did you find that?
Okay, so you can't get them anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's only two directions a narcissist is going to go. Mm-hmm. He's going to go downhill eventually as he gets old, and as obliterated and burned every bridges that he's ever built in his life with all his lies and manipulation, and they will wash you. They will wash you emotionally, energetically, financially, right? So eventually they end up with no one around them. However, like I was explaining, because their self-esteem is so fragile, because they build no resiliency, because they've never been told no. They've never been told, I don't know, you look fat, you need to exercise more.
No problem telling you that, though.
Yes, they have no problem.
No problem telling you that when you're their partner.
Very true. But the idea is that by never having heard such a thing, when they do, they don't know what to do with it. They just don't know how to react. They don't know how to, and so they lash out.
But it's almost like that programming, like looking at from a medical perspective, right? Like there's what is it called?
Self-defense mechanism.
Neural pathways is where I'm going. Like when babies, if they don't crawl, they go right from sitting to walking. They're finding, going back now, they're finding that those neural pathways were missed. Those are very important. So say kids with maybe dyslexia or learning disabilities. So I've seen a lot of occupational therapists and physiotherapists who will actually get the child, if it's young enough, to start going through the motions of crawling and making it a daily exercise to start building those pathways. But it's like you can't rebuild those pathways in a narcissist. Like it's gone, that spot, that space.
And that's the second way that you can create a narcissist. Mm-hmm. A narcissist is a personality disorder that gets created between the age of, I'd say, 1 to 3.5 years old. That's why dealing with a narcissist often can compare to a 2-year-old throwing a tantrum.
Oh yeah,
because that's the developmental stage where they're stuck at. Okay, mm-hmm. So at that stage, there's a lot of theories out there. I studied psychology at university and all that. Right. So the one that I talk about in the book is Bowlby's theory of attachment. And he says that as long as a child is able to create a secure attachment would mean when they cry, someone picks them up. When they're hungry, they receive food. When they're wet and disgusting, they get washed, right? Mm-hmm. And they develop a secure attachment knowing that need was going to be met. Maybe not from the mother or the father. It could be the grandparent. It could be an auntie. It could be, whatever. But as long as the child develops this attachment, they develop a security in their needs, and they can move forward in their evolution and continue growing. As opposed to a narcissist, he gets stuck there because he doesn't have that.
Well, yeah, because with the research I've done is a child may only be not have their needs met, like you said, all needs met, and not developing attachment, or they're only celebrated for, say, their accomplishment, or there is a lot of neglect. There is a lot of, and it's not necessarily something where you would be calling children's aid in or something. It's very subtle, but I think you defined it so beautifully, that their physical, psychosocial, emotional, all the needs that need to be met for a child are not met. And some of them can be met, but it seems a lot of these psychosocial ones, like, because when our needs are met as a child, when you're helpless at that age, right? And I know you know this, but for our listeners, somebody's going to come. And when they don't come, or they come with some regularity, or there's, that, like, and we've seen parents like this, you and I, in our professions, where they may go through the motions, but there's nothing there except.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah, I was just going to say, or you discuss me, or I don't really want to be doing this. You've ruined my life. Like, I really don't want to be doing this, but I can't get rid of you, kind of thing. Go ahead, Sonya, you want to give an example?
Well, just one example where the needs of a baby are not met. Like when I've seen this, they put the baby inside of a chair or a rocker, and they put a cushion and they put the bottle on top, and they just, the baby is feeding itself. However, the child will rather starve and be held than to not be held and be fed. Mm-hmm. And they've done a lot of study in regards to this. They use chimpanzees and things like that. And the chimpanzees will spend 95% of their time in they're both mannequin, but the one mannequin is warm and it's got fur and it's got space where the little baby chimpanzee can feel held, but it has no boobs, and so he'll only go to the boobs to drink and then always come back to where he feels warm and soft and cuddled. So
because that's a basic human need. This a basic human need is psychosocial and our emotional. That's why with preemie therapy in the ICU, we were just starting to do in NICU when I worked in there, but now it's strongly encouraged with preemies. Dad or mom takes the shirt off, and it's called that kangaroo cuddling, right? Skin to skin contact. Yeah. And you're just defining it perfectly here. That is one of our greatest needs, especially as an infant, is to develop that bond of love and attachment.
And so these individuals have not been able to develop this crucial establishing of bonds. And so that makes them impossible for them in the future to create lasting bonds or emotional bonds because they don't know how. But if you tell them that they don't know how, they automatically feel victimized and will lash out, right? So the other important thing about, and in the book I explain, some of the techniques being used by a narcissist can be used by just a regular person, right? It's not because you lie that you're necessarily a narcissist, but a narcissist will definitely lie all the time, right? And one of the important thing about the narcissist is that, everything that comes out of their mouth's a lie. They take no responsibility.
That's exactly it. No reason. You will never hear, I am sorry. It's always everybody else's fault. Everybody's out to get me. It's always a victim mentality, and you become their scapegoat. And once they beat you with whatever they need, and I'm talking words, emotions, whatever it is, I know you know this, and many probably in the audience, and then they feel they might be losing you, then they pour the love back on and the love bombing to pull you back in. It is just it. And the saddest part for me that I found so astounding years ago was realizing that they can't be fixed. Like this is like I've watched so many different psychologists and read and I've yet to see somebody that strictly even works with narcissists will be able to say, yeah, I was successfully treated someone. They're no longer a narcissist. I have seen some say where they can get them so far, but it's through a lot of like operant programming, almost like Pavlov's dog.
Yeah,
so they don't feel it, but they're trained to do what they need to do. And it's a tragedy. It really is that you've got this human being like this. Mm-hmm.
You can send a narcissist to therapy. You can say you need therapy. You can send them there. But while they're there, they will it's actually the bridge from going when you go to the Akashic records.
So okay, can I read that out loud? Because we've got 80% listening. So Aziz and Dragon or Kevin said that bridge and entire scene reminds me so much of a past life image I get from time to time. And he was referring to your Sonya's background. You said that's the bridge to the Akashic records. So
yeah, that's the bridge you take. Yeah. So you can take them there. But I remember my ex-husband going to therapy, and he was going to therapy and going, woe is me, and she's a terrible, right? So they're not working on themselves. They're not willing to change. And then he'd come home, and she was actually quite a good therapist. I got to say, I was impressed with her. And then after a while, I opened a drawer and I found like 6 papers, which basically 6 sessions of papers. And I'm like, this is your homework. How can you not go? You don't do your work and you keep going to sessions. Like, how are you going to get any better? And he's like, oh, she told me not to come anymore. And I said, is it perhaps because you don't do the homework she's asking you to do and you're not willing to put the time and effort in getting better? But that's so a narcissist kid will say, oh, I'll go to couples therapy. I'll go. But then they get there and they blame everything on you, and if it's not you, it's someone else, and because they won't take responsibility, and because they won't acknowledge they've done anything wrong, we're fools to think that their behavior is ever going to change, because they've done nothing wrong. So whatever it is they're doing, they're just going to keep doing.
But it's a vicious circle. That's a scary part, right? Because when you become involved with someone like this, and again, exactly what you just said, yeah, they may agree to go for counseling, but they're not going because they don't think they have a problem. And it doesn't matter if you tell them, because like you just said, they go into victim mode and then they lash out. And so but that's with anything with a problem, right? A serious problem that is affecting somebody's life, you have to be the one to be able to have the courage and the honesty with yourself to identify it and seek help for it. But when you've got this issue, there's no way really to help. If there's someone out there that has heard of someone that's been able to help a narcissist, I'd love to hear it. And I can tell you, knowing Sonya gets piles of books like 6-8 feet high, and she reads every one of them before she writes a book. Never mind the amount of research you do. Never mind you've lived with them, as have I. Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, now, so basically that's why the new book focuses on not the narcissists themselves, because I actually saw books that are supposed to help narcissists, and I can only laugh. Yeah. Because they'll never have.
You're not going to read it. It's the person who's living it.
It's never going to happen. However, the best I could do, and I whenever I do something, I always am asking. I want to benefit as many people as I can, based on what I want to talk about what I know. I don't, and how can my experience be of value to anybody around the world? So this book is to free the victims. So first of all, if you need to understand what's a narcissist. So I do talk about what is a narcissist, and I talk about the different techniques that they use and what does that look like, so that you can see, is it just a bad boyfriend or is it a narcissist? And if you identify that the person's a narcissist, then my recommendation is you have to break it off. Right away, and you have to cut contact and you have to block. However, that being said, that's nice to say, but in my case, it's my mother. I can't completely cut her off.
I did.
Right?
I thought I had to.
Mm-hmm. Right? And in some cases, it's your boss that's the narcissist, mm-hmm. right? Because I don't want to focus on the book is not about just boyfriends or girlfriends. It's really about meeting narcissists in everywhere you go. So it could be your niece, it could be your aunt, it could be your parents, but it could be your boss, it could be someone you work with, and sometimes you're in a career that you can't, unless, I don't know, you're mixing coffees at Starbucks, you can go mix coffee at Tim Hortons, I guess, right?
But I think it's important, Sonya, that you just said that, because earlier in our conversation, you were defining that it doesn't matter what socioeconomic, level somebody's at, or what, nationality, what sex you are, whatever it is, it comes in all forms of life. So I think that what I really love what you just said about this new book is, because we do see a lot of books for people who have been in narcissistic relationships, romantic relationships. But I think this is powerful that you're looking at it at all aspects of life, because what do you do when you've got a boss that's a narcissist, or a coworker, or somebody that you cannot maybe cut off the contact with immediately? How do you cope?
Mm-hmm. And I thought that's what I was missing when I was going through it. Mm-hmm. I think it's very, very important, because a lot of the books are saying just cut them out of your life. Okay, well, I was married to him, so I divorced him, but I have 2 kids. I can't cut him off. I have to see him every other week. How do I manage that? How do I deal with that?
Yes.
And the abuse doesn't stop because you're divorced, because every chance they have, it just, it lasted 20 years.
It's worse, I think, because like you said, every chance they have, they're gonna give it to you. They can't get what they want. Mm-hmm.
And so it was very, very important to develop some techniques and tools of our own to be able to deal with it and prevent as much damage as we can. So there's a whole chapter in the book that focuses on that. But the most important thing is that unless you take the time to heal and repair the damage that was done to your soul, to your physical body, your emotional and mental body, you won't be able to escape the drama, the trauma, the PTSD, and everything else. And you're more than likely to again enter into another narcissistic relationship. And why is that? Because we are kind, we're empathic, and that's what they look for.
So Nicole, just for people listening, for people listening, just so they know that, Nicole Thomas Ryan shared, some people like empaths attract narcissists. Yes, and they look for people like that are empathic. Mm-hmm.
They specifically target those people because they are kind, because they're usually highly resilient, and because they want to help other people. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a tendency of wanting to help, you're already pre-programmed to, and the narcissist is the victim, and he needs the most help, and he's so kind and so gorgeous and so charming and so amazing, and he loves us so much. So why would we not invest and put all this energy into this?
I'm going to be reading your book because you have worked with me. But I have talked about you being on the show before, and I've had a session with you. I've had a couple of sessions. I've told you guys I can finally feel my right foot after 30 years. Sonya is very powerful as a healer, but it's gone. I think I said this to you in our sessions, and I'm very honest on my show. I don't even know if I ever want to be in another relationship again, because I've had this around me my whole life, and I'm not like poor me, woe is me. It's almost so deep down you don't trust yourself, because when I first heard about narcissists, I thought, oh, I don't have any damage, and I think a half hour later I went, holy cow, how could you not? And you're right, you have to heal it, you have to work with it, or the universe just keeps showing it, whether you want to look at it from that perspective or not, right? Or you're just going to draw them right back in like a magnet. Definitely.
And this is where I wanted to explain the damage. And so while I was doing my research online, it's when the puppy, an empath thinks they can heal. Sometimes the puppy just needs to be let go. Well, he's not a puppy. He's like a wolf in sheep clothing. You just think he's cute and puppyish at first. So, and during the research, I'm not saying it's not wrong, but they're saying, oh, if it was a mother narcissistic, then it causes these wounds. And if it was a father narcissistic, no, it's not. It doesn't matter that it was your mother or your father. They are narcissists. And what matters is, were you the golden child or were you the black sheep? So it doesn't matter which parent was a narcissist, but which role were you assigned by the narcissist. So if you're the golden child, you can't do no wrong. You're the best of everything. However, it's still hard to grow up as a golden child because you have so much pressure to be perfect. Because
I got a question for you. What if you've got somebody that was put in the role of the golden child, but to rebel is the black sheep? Goes completely against the grain, no matter what it is, but whatever they did, and they were good at it, no matter what they did. Like at the age of 3, couldn't skate. By the age of 4, was number 1 on the hockey team, getting all the goals, could have went to the NHL. No, I don't want to do hockey anymore. And just rebelled to the point they became the black sheep. Have you come across that? Because I've seen that one in my life.
Yes, because eventually, if you don't conform and there's another child that comes along, now it all depends. Is there another child that comes along? And at the minute another child comes along, then okay, now that's going to be our golden child, and you're too much, right?
Yeah.
And narcissists can't take care of themselves. So if you think they're in any capability of taking care of a child, they're not. They'll tend to ignore the child. The basic needs, right? They won't bathe them, they won't brush their teeth, they won't brush their hair.
They won't do anything.
So if you're lucky and you have another parent there to show you these things, then you learn these things. But they don't care until it becomes of value to them. So if you're winning awards and if you're, gifted, then they'll steal that from the child and claim it as their own. Oh, it's because of me that she's this good.
That's
it's because
my
of
mother.
me.
That was my mother. I'm a nurse because of my mother. She practically wrote my RN. She did it all. Same thing. I'm going to tell us very quickly as an example. My ex-husband was out at the grocery store. My son with autism, severe autism, my parents have maybe watched him 5 times in his 26 and a half years of life. And my ex was at the grocery store, and some woman, I guess, that had been at our weddings, isn't that amazing that your mother-in-law is over there cooking and cleaning and raising that disabled child of yours while your wife has a back injury? Like, do you realize how lucky you are? I remember my ex-husband coming home going, WTF, like what? Yep, that's what happens.
Yes. I just want to answer Diana. Diana Bryden says, it matters as we bond with sick people, but how can you bond with a person who has no feelings? Because they pretend the feelings. And so you have real feelings, so you bond with them, but you're just a tool to them. And this is like I say, my book is very blunt because wearing white gloves around this, you guys, you need to wake up. If you're in a narcissistic abuse relationship, it's an abusive relationship, period. So you're being abused, and it will get, my ex-husband never physically touched me.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because I always thought being abused, and I still have a hard time saying it because I've always equated abuse with something physical. Sorry, I wanted to throw that in there. Go ahead. You said he never hit you?
No, because he would have gotten punched back. But the constant putting me down, their constant leaving me alone to handle everything, isolating me, and then there's the smearing campaign. They ruin your reputation, even while they're supposed to be highly in love with you. So that when you're starting to wake up and realize this is bad, and people, it was so funny because I caught him cheating, so I finally got rid of him, and one of his buddy phoned, and I'm like, sorry, this is my phone. If you want to reach him on his phone. And he's like, well, what happened? I said, well, he cheated on me, so now he's out. He says, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? He says, well, if you cheated on him, he can cheat on you. And I'm like, and who says I cheated on him? I'm home raising 3 kids, working full time. Where do you think I have time to throw in an extra guy on the side?
Extramarital affair on top of the package I got here.
And and what was funny is that he did not believe me.
They never do.
When I said, I never cheated on him. What are you talking about? And he was almost convincing me I had an affair. And I was like, I can't believe that you're so sold on the idea that I could cheat on somebody, but that's how they destroy your reputation outside, right? So they love bomb you at home in private, but outside he's already a good guy for being with you and supporting you because you're such a terrible person.
Well, Kevin says they will build you up only to tear you down when you least expect it, only to apologize and make promises and build you back up, only to tear you down again so they can apologize and build you back up. I'm telling you, the narcissists I've met, they never apologize. It's always somebody else's fault. Maybe that one's learned that's how his little trick or her little trick that would work.
That they'll actually apologize, not that they mean it. There's no sincerity in it. Or they'll apologize, but there'll always be a but or an however attached to their apology, right? Well, I'm sorry I hit you, but you provoked me, right? So it's not really a true apology. And what Sun's Dragon is talking about, that's called trauma bonding. There's an actual name for this. This demolishing building, it's called trauma bonding. So it's another tool that the narcissists abuse takes place.
Because I've seen this too. Julia Evans says they try and cut you off from family and friends, and I've had that happen because they don't want you to hear common sense, right? They don't want you to hear from the people that love you.
It serves multiple purposes because the isolation makes you depend on them more because you have no one else. And also, if you have friends and family, your friends and family will comment, well, he's a jerk. Why is he saying this to you? Or why is he treating you this way? So the isolation is one of their key tactics in order to, and then you don't have anybody to corroborate what they said. So, an example, you want to go out for friends, and then he springs up, oh, but I had planned a romantic thing on Saturday. You call your friends and you're like, oh my gosh, he's been kind of coldish lately, but I guess he's planning a romantic surprise. I can't come, girls. I'm going to do this weekend. Weekend comes, and he's like, I never said that.
Oh, I love that one. I always say, are we living in different time dimensions?
And then you're like, am I going crazy? Like, I didn't invent this. Did I dream this?
Because that's what happens, right? You question your sanity. Like, did I?
And that's gaslighting. So that is gaslighting. Gaslighting is when you start questioning your own sanity and your own ability to live in this reality, because they're so convincing. They make you think that you created all this, or you dreamed all this, or you can't tell, reality from dreamland apart. And that then affects your self-esteem and your ability to believe that you can make it without them, and leaving them much harder.
The beauty in this, even though, and I am going to be reading your book, and a lot of people out here, guys, you got to get this book, because you know what, it's good to talk about these things for people that because that's what happened to me. Okay, I didn't know my mother was a narcissist, well, still is, and then I happened to be doing research, like I said, for a show, and something had come up in the research. I wasn't looking for narcissism, and as I started reading this, I went, holy crap, this person could have been a fly on the wall in my house. And I started to read and read and read, and the more I read, by understanding how these symptoms start to present themselves, because like you said, sometimes it's just a bad spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it could be, versus truly what a narcissist is. Because I know you've written a book from a healing perspective, how to heal from this. So I want to point that out. And I think it helps people sharing here too, their own experiences. I'm going to give a shout out to Michelle Christine. That's my cousin. And she says, hello, perfect topic. She's in the same province as you, Sonya.
Oh, well, we should meet them. Do you want to talk about what
we talk about whatever you want. So go ahead.
Do you want to talk about what a narcissistic parent can do to you growing up?
Yes, I think it's important. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So as they're your parents, you are depending on them. And so because you depend on them, there's a part of you that wants to please them. You become a people, that makes sense, right? So you become a people pleaser. Yep. And to a narcissistic parent, you can't express any emotion. They're not interested in your emotion, and they don't understand your emotions. So absolutely, your emotion are a bother to them. So then that makes you develop the thinking that your emotions are not validated. Mm-hmm. What you feel, no, a narcissist cannot change. They only get worse.
She's over in Australia, probably listening to us at work on a Tuesday morning. You missed that, Mish. We were talking about it. They can't change. They can't. Mm-mm. Sorry, go ahead.
No. And then, you know what? If the only time you can see a change, now this, I'll say this, the only time you'll notice a change is because their supply is increased. Now, the supply, I explained in the book that they are, imagine a black hole. They're an abyss, and they cannot receive enough love, enough attention, enough compliments, enough money to ever fill the hole. So they need like a lot. But if they have a lot of supply, so getting a lot of attention either at work or in their families, or then they ease off on the gas pedal, if you will, because they're feeling like they're Oh, really? I'm sorry to hear that, Mish.
So Mish just shared, because I said you were at work. I'm sorry you did say that earlier, Michelle. She said, I just quit my job because of one. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. So when they have an adequate supply, you actually see the symptoms ease off?
They ease up a little bit, yes, because they're happy, right? Things are going for them. And when does that happen? When they find a spouse. Because their spouse, they just leech off of that one and they drain it until there's a carcass left. If they don't have a spouse, that's when they'll come at you as friends and colleagues and coworkers because they can't get it at home. So they need to get it everywhere they can. And they're usually not.
And that's why everybody else thinks they're just so wonderful, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
And I got this. I wrote my biography. I broke the silence of the abuse in my home. And I have a bunch of cousins and they read the book and they're like, but Auntie was such a nice, gentle woman. And I'm like, no, she was violent, abusive, and hit us. And yeah. But the minute you went out that front door, she put on that little meek victim, woman look and story, and everybody took pity on her. And it doesn't matter if it's love, if it's pity, as long as it's attention, as long as the eyes are on them and people are listening. It's when you do that energetically, I should explain that. Energetically, you're sending energy to this person. Mm-hmm. When you're looking at someone, when you're paying attention, you're sending them energy. However, because the person has listened and now is ready to comment, you'll shut up, look at the person, and then for all the energy they sent you, you send energy back because that's how a conversation or a friendship works, right? And mm-hmm. So eventually this back and forth of this energy exponentially grows. But with a narcissist, they want you to stare at them. They want you to pity them. It doesn't matter what you do as long as you keep sending this energy to them. But it's a pit. So they have nothing left to give you back. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. But they will take and take and take. So if I have to say, in the last 20 years, the only time my ex-husband was pleasant was when he was with a girlfriend.
Because she was his problem.
Well, but you know what? And this is how big my heart is. I was trying to find a way to warn her. This is how screwed up being with a narcissistic is. So I'm trying to warn her that he's a bad person. But then at the same time, I'm like, but she's only going to think that I want him back.
Yeah, there's no way.
She's not going to believe me because he's in the love bombing phase with her. So she has no idea why I would ever leave such a wonderful man, right? And one of his ex-girlfriend actually told me, if you want him back, forget it. I said, oh, darling, he's yours and all yours. And I'm fine. Just dropping the kids
off. But
then
you get in a relationship with somebody like this too, and they tell you how horrible their ex was. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe somebody was that terrible. Like, that's awful. And you believe it until you get sucked in, and then you realize, and you think, my God, that person was a saint with what they put up with.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But that was the only time that I had peace because he could go up and down over her. Can you be a nice narcissist? Well, when you're being love bombed, when at the beginning of the relationship, when they're trying to draw you in and make you one of their emotional slaves. So yeah, they'll be nice, but there's no love behind it. A narcissist never ever loved you. They used you, and they played with you.
I think they think that that's what love is. Like in their mind, because I have met people not in a personal relationship, but I've met people within, say, a professional practice, where they can't ever figure out why they're always alone, why relationships never work out. And then, I've had a few psychologists and stuff on here, and it's not love, but in their mind, that's what
the narcissist, they love that you love them. They don't love you. but they love that you love them. They love that you give them attention. So they,
but do you think most narcissists really realize this? Like I'm telling you, the ones like my mother wouldn't have a clue what this means. Like she would never think that deeply about this. This would just be who she is and the way she does things.
Okay, so a narcissist has, imagine this is their bubble, okay? And they're inside. You see, so if the bubble pops, they're liquid. They don't even have solid form, so they'll just splatter and disappear, right? Yeah. So in order to protect this very, very thin bubble that holds them together, the narcissists use the manipulation and the lying and everything else to get their supply of energy and at the same time protect themselves. But you can only lie so much before eventually you start getting caught. And then you'll say, I thought you were with Sandy. Oh, it's not Sandy, it's Sophie. Well, I don't know Sophie. Sophie who? And you start questioning things, and then they start getting angry, right? But they have to protect this lie because their entire world is based on this fantasy they created for themselves. So my mother's fantasy was that she was a poor housewife with no choice and unable to wear nice clothes and with no future, who was forced to stay at home and raise kids. And so she created this entire bubble story. Meanwhile, we're at home and we can see Dad trying to buy her flowers and she yells at him for spending money on flowers. You can see him trying to go to the store and get her a new dress because he keeps hearing from his sister, buy your wife a new dress, and she's like, oh no, it's too much money. I don't want to spend my money on that. And he says, not your money, it's my money. It's just, our money is my money and I don't want to spend the money. So this fantasy has to hold, because all of a sudden, if she starts wearing new dress, she can't tell the story that my dad.
No, she can't. I guess where I was going though with is the ones, a lot of them that I have met are not that deep. So they're not purposely conniving that this is who I'm going to go get. They have a type. They don't know why they have the type. Maybe they do, but a lot of the ones if you ask my mother if she loved me, she never told me ever in my life. And I'm not coming from a victim stance here. Where the reason I'm sharing this, if you asked her that, she would believe that, yeah, she loved me, but she doesn't know any other kind of love in her mind. And maybe it's a story she's told herself and told other people.
Okay, so I don't know your mom, but I can tell you from my perspective, my mom never said I love you. And she didn't know what love was. She never acted lovingly. But when she talked to other people, she would say, oh, I was so good to my children. I was so loving. I took care of them and I don't know why they're abandoning me. And you're like, you weren't loving because, you just, so.
I can tell you right now, this is how quickly I learned this before even knowing what this was. When I was going to university to be a nurse, after my first year of university, so I was 18 going on 19, and I started working as a non-registered nursing assistant in a nursing home. And everybody would talk that they'd have these beautiful, lovely old people that nobody would visit. And you know what I used to say even back then? You have no idea what they were like to their children growing up. This is what you see. Like once in a while, you would get a person that really was abandoned and the family was very selfish. But most times, and at 18 going on 19, not knowing narcissism, I would say them, you have no idea what those parents did to those children behind closed doors. So it is not fair you to judge seeing this sweet little old lady whining and crying and complaining that she's lonely. And I'll bet she is. But there's usually a reason.
My mom broke her bone, or some pelvic bone. Anyway, she couldn't really walk. She had to be laying down at the hospital for weeks because they couldn't put pins. They couldn't, so she just had to stay as still as you could, right? So I went and visited her every day because I did what's in the book. I did the 12 steps to the healing parts. I'm healed now. I can face any narcissistic in this world, and I'm completely unfazed by them. I don't buy into it anymore, and because I'm strong, because I have boundaries. Because
I will be buying this book the minute it comes out.
And that's what the steps are. You know, my son was like, oh, it's 12 steps. Like, I said, well, because there's 12 steps, right? There's not 13, there's not 11, there was 12, right? But part of it is, first of all, your identity is destroyed by the narcissist. So you don't truly know, or you've forgotten, or you don't even believe who you are anymore. So there's a part we have to stop and say, who am I?
Or that you're not worthy, or you're not worthy. That's
exactly right. So that's where we start, right? So who am I? What do I like? What makes me smile? Because you haven't smiled in a while if you've been in a abusive relationship with a narcissist. You only cry all the time. You're in such a dark place. So you have to, through the program, you ask yourself, okay, so what made me smile before? And it doesn't mean that if you go do it right away, you'll be smiling. So are we like a mirror to them as well? They don't like what's in them. No. See, this is a great
question. That's a good question Michelle asked.
It's not it. So Mish says, so are we like a mirror to them as well? They don't like what's in them that they see in us. And this is the trick. They don't see it in you. It is not in you. They are projecting it into you.
Yes.
That's another tool in the toolbox. So Mish, I want you to rethink this and ask yourself, is it really true what they said? They're projecting what's inside of them onto you, but you don't have to have that. Like, I'll give you a good example. I went to pick up my drop off my youngest and the oldest, whether's her dad's house, and it was her birthday, so I had her present in her card. So I said, do you mind calling her out so I can give her a present and a card? And he looked at me straight in the eye and he says, you're a deadbeat mom and you don't deserve to be spending time with her. Meanwhile, he's telling the judge, the lawyers, the psychologist, I never say those things. I encourage them to go see their mom, blah, 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 right? But to my face, when there's no one listening, it's like, you're a deadbeat mom, you don't deserve it. I'm not going to let her out and you're not going to see her. And for a second there, I asked myself, so wait, am I a deadbeat mom? So obviously the answer is no, because I'm a devoted mother and I adore my 3 children. And I'm like, right. Then the next question was, is there anything I can say that would ever make him change his mind about that? And the answer is no, because he's convinced that I'm a deadbeat mom. So I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time, energy, because that's what he wanted, right? He wanted an argument to get energy out of it. And I'm like, you know what? I'll see you on the soccer field Sunday. Goodbye.
So this is taking your power back too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But in order to take your power back, you have to know your power. You have to know who you are. You have to go back to the drawing board and say, what am I like? Right? Because he had convinced me that I was laughing too loud and I was grabbing too much attention. And I was like, I'm just laughing, dude. It's funny. Now I have to watch my volume when I'm laughing. Like, how do you do that? And I would stop laughing. Right? So little by little, he took these things away until who I was completely gone. Now, the person you're talking to today and you're seeing is the healed person. And I will be loud and I will talk and I will have fun. And I don't care. Anybody watching or listening, they'll just say, wow, she's having a lot of fun. Or at worst they'll say, I wonder if she hit the wine bottle early. You know what I mean?
I don't know your business.
I don't care. So after we need to find out who we are and start loving ourselves. The most common question, actually, and I'm surprised it didn't show up on so far. I'm trying to catch all the comments. There's lots of comments, but why me? And the answer to why you is because as a soul, you are contracted to learn to love yourself. And the best, yes. So the spiritual reason why you will meet a narcissist, because you don't love yourself. Now, that's not, entirely your fault, because maybe no one showed you how, especially like you and me. If you're born with a narcissistic parent, if taking time for ourselves was being selfish,
That's all I have. You're a selfish little bitch. You think of no one but yourself from the time.
So you don't learn to love yourself. And so your soul says, okay, well, I'll keep meeting narcissists until I hit rock bottom. And then I realize that all of this is happening because I want to love everyone, but I don't love me.
That's true. And you know what? And I'm pretty honest on this show, and because it is hard to love yourself. There's a lot of people out there, myself included. It's a job every day. Right. And I love that you've put this book out here, because I know without even reading it, I know you've included some of the tools to get you on the path of learning how to love yourself.
The whole chapter about loving yourself. Mm-hmm. And the main example is, when you go on an airplane, they always keep telling you, put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Right. And I do this all the time. I tell young mothers, I said, listen, if you can't get up because you're exhausted, how are you going to take care of the kids? And she's like, well, but I'm like, so don't feel guilty about taking 1 hour to ask a friend to watch the kids for you to go have a bath, or for you to go take a walk outside. Or, you can start by also monitoring your own emotions, which were not taught if you come from a narcissistic parents, right? How do you love self if you had no real love? Because it comes from spirit. So the first step in the book is you have to, everything that I do works with a higher power. So there's an entire step where you find your personal higher power. And honestly, I don't get upset if you call it Gaia, Buddha, higher self, inner being. I don't care. But you need to connect with this higher source. Now, for Buddhists, it's their light, their inner light that got snuffed. So it's you go back to this bright inner light. But for some people, it's something that it's connected to outside of themselves, but yet connected to themselves, right? And with that higher power shows you what love is. And
because we come from love. We come from love. Nothing but love.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you work with the different things that you have to do, and you slowly learn to take care of yourself, and you slowly learn to say no. Saying no is one of those most dramatic things. Yeah. It was, for me, I hate conflict.
So do I. Most of us that have grown up this way, and it's actually traumatic. If I have someone screaming at me, I've never yelled at my children, and people don't believe me. Don't get me wrong. I didn't indulge them. If my cousin's still here, she can even vouch. Not that I need to vouch, but you know what I'm saying. But people won't believe me. But I grew up with so much verbal abuse and screaming and yelling. I said, I will never raise my children that way. So no, they knew right from wrong, and they were disciplined, not beaten. They were disciplined and things like that.
There's a difference.
It's the gift my mother gave me. I always say that's the one gift she gave me, was that I vowed I would never parent the way she did. Don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect, but I was not going to do that to my children.
But it's hard. It's hard parenting this way, because you know what not to do, but not knowing what not to do doesn't necessarily fill the gap of what you're supposed to do.
Doesn't mean it's always right either.
Right? So it's hard. So I'm trying to take that into consideration when I build those steps, right? And once you're able to connect with this love, the love of Creator, because Creator is love. Once you can connect to that, and then you start following the steps and starting to act for yourself. Like I asked myself, now that it was every other week. So now that I have every other week where I'm completely alone, because now even though I'm divorced, I've been isolated. So I have to rebuild my social network. Yeah. I have to rebuild everything from scratch. And one of the things I wanted to do for a long time, but I didn't have time while looking after the kids and while looking after him, because he was worse than the 3 kids put together. I wanted to write a book. So I sat down and I had no expectations. You know what I mean? I've been wanting to write this story. I'll sit down and I'll give it a try. And that turned out into my first book, right? So, and that launched a whole writing career, and it's unexpected. Well, yes, the book will be available July 21st on Amazon, and I will share my Amazon author link on the comments, so
I'll just
you
read
guys
her
can.
comment out for people listening. So Nicole shared, I don't know how to love myself. I need this book. I think a lot of us need this book. A lot of us. And I like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Interestingly enough, this book was asked by Spirit in 2019. But I was still in 2019 dealing with my abusive ex-husband in the divorce and custody, and it was very emotional, and it was not something I could put together. I wasn't prepared.
Whereas you knew that, even working with me, right? If I could have fixed everything that I wanted to fix and still plan on fixing, but I knew within myself that, yes, I have not forgotten about it, but all in good time with the way things are going to fall into place with the plans that we make, right? So this is 5 years later. But it was done. We did it, and probably have a lot more to be able to put into this book, having gone through your own healing journey versus from the place you were in, like you're sharing.
Absolutely.
2019.
Yeah. And I'm also, I think it's, I got a lot more to give when it comes to parenting. Because it's not co-parenting. There's a lady, Melanie Tonya Evans, I believe. She's from Australia, and she coined it parallel parenting.
Oh, I like that.
And yeah, because you're gonna do whatever you're trying to do, and they're not gonna care, right? So I was able to write an entire chapter, which I wouldn't have been able to 5 years ago.
Okay.
Right, and also, I know I heal from it, but putting it into kind of a system or certain steps that it's easy to follow if you're not beside me, right? The idea is that this can help people anywhere in the world, and they don't need necessarily to be with me to do this. So I wanted to build it as complete as I could in order to make it easy to do.
So Zaysun Dragon or Kevin says, I've learned that, and from there, how to love myself and not define myself by what any other tried to tell me. And Diane, I was just going to add, Diane Brayton says she gets her stuff. Melanie, who you mentioned. So.
Oh, there you go. The only thing is that I wanted a more, like I said, I did my research, right? And I found that it was not concrete enough. I'm not saying it's wrong and it doesn't work. Apparently it works for thousands of people, which is, I'm so happy. But I think that you're so broken that telling someone, if you meditate with this, it'll get fixed. I was suicidal when I left. I couldn't take that leap of faith. I really couldn't. That leap of faith that she's asking you to do in her steps, I just couldn't get there. I needed something a lot more concrete. I needed some steps that I could say, okay, what is it about me that's broken? All right, now how can I fix this? And it's easy to say to someone, you need to set boundaries. But for someone who's never learned, right, you don't know how to set boundaries. No one, especially not a narcissistic parent, will ever teach you how to set boundaries.
There are no boundaries. There are none. There are none.
So how do you reinforce an empty space? You can't. So there's an entire chapter. And in the chapter, I list the rights of the children rights from the international, international children rights. So if it, I want you to understand as a child, no matter where you were in the world, you were entitled to this and you didn't have that. And then we go into, because the book, we're in Canada, so I have the fundamental rights and freedoms in Canada. And then I tell you, you are entitled to safety. You are entitled to this, your rights of beliefs and freedoms. And then I help you set your own personal boundaries. Knowing what you're allowed to have is already a good start. And then after that saying, okay, well, let's say in the bedroom, for example, narcissists tend to be into pornography. They tend to be into the weird, kinky, abusive stuff. And
become serial killers, because following true crime, never mind you've come from a law enforcement background, The more and more you look into the psychopathy and the whole brain issue with serial killers and the fantasies they create. And you're right, they just that just brought that up in my mind, thinking about that, all the weird, kinky, weird stuff that, from what I've seen, it they can't get what they need from it any further, so they move on to horrible things. And I'm talking about serial killers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Their need gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Mm-hmm. And so having a boundary, saying, well, I'm okay with role playing, I'm okay with toys, this one, but when I'm not okay with a leash, and I'm not okay with a bell and gagging in my mouth, and it's okay to say that, right? Right. And oftentimes, one of the things that was, I can tell you, the most difficult thing I had to put in the book is that I almost got raped by my husband.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And it was hard because I felt ashamed. You know what? I felt embarrassed to say that the person I married, who I thought loved me, actually was ready to be violently abusing me sexually in the bedroom, under the fact that he was my husband.
And the thing is, you know what? Things haven't shifted. We have to be careful with the R word on YouTube. That's not your fault or anybody's. That's their guidelines. Okay. I've been seeing it being called graped, which it shouldn't be, because it deserves the full force of what it should be, because it's horrific. And the reason why I mention this is, this is still going on a lot in marital relationships. Never mind, I've been seeing that, again, following true crime, and I know that's not every crime in the world, but there's still a lot of twisted psychos out there. And then never mind what the victims receive, and how many grapes go unreported, because especially when it's not even just a woman, a man too. The things that
absolutely.
That you face, you shouldn't have to convince anybody, because unless you're absolutely psychotically deranged, who in their right mind is going to report a grape and go through what you have to go through, never mind physically after the fact, never mind what it does to you emotionally, mentally. I mean, I could go on and on and on, right? Yeah. And I hear what you're saying. Someone that
this is not an example that, this one actually took me some time, so debating because I didn't do anything wrong, right? I'm just tired. I gave birth just by C-section just a few weeks before. I'm still not well. And because I'm taking care of the 3 kids now on my own while he's out partying and doing his thing.
She just had major abdominal surgery. Never mind.
Yeah. Right. And it was and I remember the day. My daughter was born September 11, and this was November 11. And so people say, well, it's over the 6 weeks. I'm like, yeah, well, if you have time to
your body doesn't get a magical timer and say, okay, having given birth, having worked in labor and delivery, maternal, newborn, and NICU, for anybody out there that thinks that your body, a woman's body, has a time clock, ding, 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 6 weeks, we're ready to go. I would just love for one. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to be sexist here. Anybody, a male out there that's had abdominal surgery, okay, if you've had all the muscles in your stomach cut, never mind what you go through to grow another human being, and you tell me if you're going to feel like being romantic once the timer hits at 6 weeks. Mm-hmm.
And I'm receiving no help, no assistance. I'm alone. I'm taking care of all the 3 children, the house, the food, right? So I'm not recuperating as fast as I wish I was, because I'm exhausted, right? But yeah, it was a weird incident where he came home.
It wasn't your fault.
Oh, absolutely not. But why am I embarrassed is my question. right? Why for years was I embarrassed to have lived this horrible situation?
Because people judge, and it's nobody's job to judge, and we all do it. Even though I say I try not to judge, I do, but we all do it, myself included. But I really try to remember that, like I always say, nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors. And the other thing is, we really do need to walk not a mile, 100 miles in someone else's shoes to even begin to fathom what's going on. So who could you have told about this that you went through, right, without feeling judged? And I mean,
and you gotta remember who I was working for, right? So if I report this, it's everybody I work with who's gonna hear about it, right? So
that must have been so terrifying for you, because it's your husband, and you know that if it ever got out there too, never mind on top of that, what would have happened, right?
Yeah.
He would have been judged. And
so I didn't report this because I left him shortly after. But one day I was dropping the kids off at his house, and he said I tried to run him over. Yeah. So the whole full investigation went into this, and I had to go through an entire investigation, and the only thing that saved me, there was some CCTV on the building, which clearly.
Oh, thank God. You still there, or is it me that froze? Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know who froze. So it was the CCTV on the building that saved my behind, because if it wasn't for that, it was my word against his.
For those of you just coming in, I'm going to remind them, I always forget to do this, Sonya. So if you're just tuning into the Angel Rock on UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio Network, and we're having a guest favorite back on the show. I'm going to have her on a couple times a year. I have only a couple guests I do that, but you always love them. And Sonya Roy is one of them. And she's just written a book about narcissism and about the 12 steps to go through just to healing. Rather than just reiterating, we're sharing the personal stories, and there's a lot of conversation, but Sonya's also pointing out, and very bravely, and I commend you to share your own experiences and what you've gone through. So, because a lot of people are sharing their own personal experiences, but the one thing I do want to point out, when Sonya said, you know what I do for a living, she worked for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Was it 30 years?
No, 20.
Okay, 20 years. For those people who know what that is, most of you probably around the world know the red-coated Mounties with the fedora. That's law enforcement. That's like high up, like if you're looking at United States, FBI, CIA. I know it isn't, but for people to understand the level, it's not just, local policing. It's higher up. You guys do a ton of stuff.
Federal policing. Yeah.
So just so you know, so that's what she's talking about when she says, you know what I did for a living, to try and report that. So sorry, I didn't cut you off. So there was closed captioning to prove that you did not run him over.
Yes, and that saved my bacon. So after that, I got the dashboard camera. So whenever, and this is the things I pass on in the book, right? And I was completely isolated, so I had no choice. I had, eventually, when they were starting school, because I got divorced, they were very young. Then the Friday I would pick them up from school, and so I wouldn't have to see him, right? So eliminating the chances of contacts, and he made me beg for the child support checks. So I registered with a government agency he had to deal with them, and they just send me the money, and I didn't have to beg for money I was using for the kids. You know what I mean? So all of those things. Yeah. Right? Yeah. All of those things are in the book to help you, how can you avoid conflict? How can you avoid this situation and that? But eventually, one of the most important exercises to do is forgiving yourself.
You know what? You're right. Because like I said to you earlier, and I've been very honest, well, I'm always honest on the show, but I'm at the point now that if I ever had another relationship, because it seems, and I love that you pointed out that the reason why spiritually this happens is we need to learn ourselves from a soul perspective, a human perspective of it all. But it gets to the point that you almost don't trust yourself to be able to see.
Absolutely.
Am I going to pull in another? Because I can tell you, every narcissist I've had in my life, none of them presented exactly the same. None of them. They all.
but yet all the techniques are the same. And so once you're able to see clearly the techniques, no one can fool you anymore because you know what they're doing. I experienced this with my mother. She was in the hospital and she's like, I need to go pee. I said, okay, no problem. Now remember, she's got this broken bone. So I pushed a button, right? She's like, come on, help me. I have to go pee. I said, I cannot help you. There needs to be two people. Otherwise, you're going to hurt yourself again. I'm not going to do this because I don't want to hurt you. So we're going to have to wait for the next. Right? And I'm like, I'm not putting myself through this. You're going to have to wait. If you pee in the bed, you just pee in the bed. They'll change the bed. It's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? And so anyway, they finally come and they sit around this chair for her to pee. And I, you know, she's like, my daughter would not help me. And I'm looking at the nurse, and then she looked at my mom. She says, we need to be two people. It's not your daughter's job. And it would
some of us nurses know about, like I said, barely 19 years old, lecturing older women. Don't you dare talk about that family behind their back.
Right? So anyway, so she sits on the chair. She's not on there 15 seconds. She's like, I'm done. I said, you haven't peed yet. She's like, how would you know? I said, well, Mom, I would hear it. You know, you're peeing in a plastic thing and you're right in front of me. So go pee. She's like, I'm done. And I'm like, oh my God. And then she turned vicious. Just like Bilbo, you know, when he's like, my ring kind of thing, you know, and then you're like, whoa. My precious. Yeah. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can see it now. You try to beg and do the thing. And I said, no, now you're trying to be mean and vicious to make me ply. But I'm like, you know what? You're a 90-year-old wrinkled little lady and you don't scare me anymore. You just, it's not there. I said, I pushed a button. When they're free, they'll come back and put you back into bed. So then she starts crying. It was like playing a different
my mother's mother was like this too. And I used to have to deal with all the medical stuff till she did that in front of all of my previous coworkers. They all thought I was the worst person on the planet. And I said,
right,
I'm done. See ya. I never, and it wasn't vicious or anything. It was like, no, I can't do this anymore. I'm done.
But my reaction, because it was so clear what she was doing, I started laughing. And the nurses came in and they're looking at me. I'm like, this is hilarious. I can see all their manipulation technique. I said, it's like a puppet show. I'm like, oh my gosh. And they're looking at me like, good for you. And they put her back in bed. And I said, this is the rule. We have rules and it's two-person and it's not me. And this is the way it's going to be. If you're not happy, you know, I'm not going to come back. So another day, and she was in the hospital for quite a while, almost 2 months.
I bet, yeah.
I went back in, and now I'm there every day from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock, right? I'm trying to entertain her, take care of her, and all these things. And then I came in one day, I was late because I had to go grocery shopping. I had to do laundry. I had to pay bills. And when I came in the room, she started yelling at me. She's pissed off because, you know, I didn't show up at 8 o'clock. And I was like, is that how you feel? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well then I'll leave and I'll come back tomorrow and hopefully you're in a better mood tomorrow. Bye. By the nurse's station, they're like, are you leaving already? I said, yeah. She yelled.
Do you know why they were asking too? What I was going to say to you is because when you went home, guess who got it? Nurses. That's probably why they were going, you're going home already? I'm serious.
As you're healing from this abuse, you have to learn, and this is a boundary, right? That we were talking about boundaries. That's what a boundary looks like. I'm coming here of my own good free will to entertain you, play with you, and take care of you all day. And in exchange, and this I'm doing voluntarily, you know, of my own free will, but in exchange, you will talk to me properly. You won't call me names. You won't yell at me, and you won't swear at me. And that's a boundary. And so it's part of what you need to learn and how to, you know, heal is to learn to say no and learn to say this is okay and this is okay, but up to this point and not past this line. And things
So
like that.
Michelle's asking, she's in Australia. She came in a bit later. We did sort of touch on this, but Michelle's asking, so for anybody tuning in late too, probably the same question. So are they placed in our lives to learn, meaning narcissists? And you shared
Yes.
a answer.
They're placed by your soul before you came to Earth, because you wanted to learn about loving and respecting yourself.
She's going, sorry, it's not your fault. There's probably lots of people that have tuned in. That's why I mentioned it. I didn't want to make you feel embarrassed or anything, Michelle, because I think it's a good question. And there are people that are probably have just tuned in. So please don't think I was singling you out. You didn't do anything wrong, hun.
Yeah, and so and then eventually we go into really to the aspect of the physical healing. Like in the book, I'm like, I'm not a doctor, so now maybe is a good time to do a physical checkup, a dental checkup, an optometrist, and get yourself a real checkup to see. Because if you've been living in hypervigilance, and if you're suffering from PTSD, you might need more than just words. You might need actual medication or treatment, right? So that's the physical body, but then we work with the emotional, mental, and spiritual body exercises as well.
This I use all the time, this book, The Secret Language of Your Body. When we're in that much, never mind the energy exchange that we talked about, never mind the high level of stress and sadness, depression, the tears, there's no joy. It's going to have a toll on your body physically. So that's so important. Now, the one thing I do want to add that Spirit keeps reminding me, my co-host David from my show on Thursday nights kept saying, you got to watch What We Do in the Shadows. So I finally did. And it's about these vampires. They got a fake reality, like it's a reality TV crew following them around as they follow them from day to day life. But the reason I mention it, they have 3 vampires. They have a wannabe, the familiar, but the other one that they consider a monster is the psychic vampire. And I thought, my God, all they need to add is a narcissist to this, and it would be just perfect when you were talking about the energy exchange. And they show that, like, that's why he's a monster, because he goes to work and all the tech, like somebody did their homework on a psychic vampire. And I would say even narcissism is placed in it. That's what keeps coming to mind. Like they actually did this, and it's a comedy, but the thing is, it's real.
Yes. And there's I apologize to that author. I'm forgetting her name right now, but she literally said the energy vampires are narcissists. So that's her book. All her book is about that, is how they will suck you dry. And I totally agree.
But that's why it was so weird. Like Spirit kept reminding me about the show, and when they did again, that's why I brought it up. Like it's based on a movie I didn't even know. Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, one of our hosts on Fridays, a good friend of mine, she does Spirit Switchboard for people listening on Fridays from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Amazing medium, paranormal investigator, psychic, what have you. And she was the one that mentioned to me, well, it actually came from, I think it was at one of the Cannes Film Festival in 2014. It was a movie put out, and now they've made a TV series of it. But one of the monsters in the TV series looks like the most nerdiest guy, Colin Ferguson, I think his name is. And that's what he goes by. Not Colin, it's Colin Ferguson. He literally is one of the monsters there. Eternal, goes on forever. But he is a psychic vampire, narcissist. And then he meets his match at one job that's a female. And they've turned it into a monster. Looks normal.
What I talk about this in the book, and I say even vampires, real, like, well, okay, so I gotta rephrase this. Fantasy vampires, right, with the fangs eating blood. Those will even say, we got to stop eating because we're going to run out of humans eventually, right? And we can't just transform just whoever we want into vampires, because we have to watch the supply versus, how many we need to feed. So, like in the Twilight series, if you transform too many people, they come in and they just kill it. They call everybody. Right?
Newborns.
Because it's going to...
I just rewatched the whole series, believe it or not. I'm always looking for something to watch. I am while I'm crafting and creating and doing what I'm doing. I thought, what have I not watched in a long time? And something came up to remind me. And I thought, well, I'll turn that on. I just finished watching it. So it's so funny you brought it up. But you're right. All the newborns, right? It was the newborns that were.
So they go on this eating frenzy and they're like, no. That there's too many of them, and they just call them. But a narcissist can't comprehend that if he just keeps sucking everybody dry, eventually he will have nothing left.
Nothing.
They're so destructive and wasteful in that way that they can't even comprehend that they think there's always going to be someone chanting my praise.
The ones I have met have not thought that deeply. Like, even if you could reach inside their heads, it's just who they are and the way they operate, and they've done it since childhood. Like, the reason my mother is the way she is, for many reasons, her mother was one. Like I said, when she was in the hospital and some of the things you were sharing, and I remember my brother, like, I've cut my whole family off because it was my choice. It was the healthiest thing, and I'm happier now than I've ever been because I can do what I want to do, that I'm here to do, I should say, not sounding so egotistical, what I want to do, but what I'm meant to be doing. Okay. And I remember my brother saying to me when my grandmother was dying, are you going to see her? And I said, no, I've said everything I need to say, and I feel at peace with it. He felt he needed to go. And I said, you got to do what you got to do. And to try and explain that to people, like the same as my own parents, they're ill and they're probably not going to be around much longer. I've made peace with it. And it's not from a place of anger or revenge or getting back. It's just, no, I'm good. I'm done. Anything we need to converse will be done from the other side.
Step 11 is to look at your surroundings and ask yourself, who makes you happy? Who supports you? Who believes in you? Right? And if these people are not doing that, they're not your friends. You may have known them for 15 or 20 years, but if you were to meet those people today, would you choose to be friends with these people? Do you have anything in common with these people? What are they bringing? What's the exchange? Like, there's always got to be an exchange. So what is it that you're exchanging? What are you getting in exchange?
It's interesting you said that, because another thing I've started to ask myself with boundary building is, and I don't say this disrespectfully, but there are a lot of people, and I appreciate that people message me, don't get me wrong, but sometimes I'll get 100 messages in a day at all hours of the day and night. And what can you do? What have you got to give me, basically? What can you do for me? What can you do for me? What can you do for me? And it was Spirit that gave me this. And it kind of goes around with what you said. If knowing what you know now, would you have chosen to be friends with these people 15 years ago? It's, if you were in this situation, would you be doing the same thing, reaching out to people that you don't know or whatever? And again, they didn't build the boundary for me, but it was kind of like an aha moment. It gave me a bit more peace that sometimes I got to say no, and that's okay to say no and to set a boundary. I've had people say to me, I swear to God, to you that rarely know me, yeah, I was in a really bad mood today, and I was thinking, who could I talk to that would put me in a great mood? I know, Lorilei. And I'm not saying that from an ego sense, but saying, well, you're always positive. Well, my life isn't always positive. I'm choosing to choose positivity and joy, right? So sometimes you got to have those wake up calls in the strangest of moments sometimes, and I'm still working on
but you said how you decided to break away with some family members, right? And so some people in my family are very disrespectful about the work that I do, and they don't understand the value of what I have, right? So they completely trivialize my entire life. This is my life's work that I'm doing right now, right?
That's what happened to me. Had I not done and said no more, I had nothing left to give anymore anyways. And I said no, because I would never have been free to do what I am doing this life. That's what I meant. I can do what I want to do. I completely hear you. Please continue, though, for people that are trying to understand this.
And so I asked myself, okay, so in this particular incident, it was one of my brother, and it went badly when he visited, and I like to give people a second chance, because you don't know, maybe they're shit happens, you're not feeling well, you were stressed, whatever. I'll give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but that's it. And then he did it again, and I'm like, no, you're done. You're done. So I will talk to you, but you can't come to my house, and you can't mistreat me, and you can't treat me that way.
That's setting boundaries. So, right? They don't have you have as much of a right to say and have say so about something like you said. Now, you can't come to my house, because then again, right? At least wherever you are, if you're going to meet with them, when you want to leave, you're going to leave, and you're going to, you know what I mean? And it sounds egotistical, but it's not. You get some of the control back in your life and set some boundaries.
It's not Yeah, it's not egotistical at all. It's protecting ourselves. It's not that high of a percentage. However,
just for people listening, I'm going to read it, Sonya. Sorry, it's hard to remember. I forget sometimes too. So Mish is asking, what percentage of the world are narcissistic?
There's not that many, but just like any other deviant personality, one narcissist will be affecting 150 people. So there's not 150 narcissists. There's 150 people being affected by one. So the percentage is not as big as we think it is. But anyway, the other people question my decision, right? Because now this narcissist is going around saying how terrible I am, that I won't let him come to my house, and this and that. And and then I explain, it's my house. Coming to my house is a privilege. And that privilege can be revoked at any time should you not deserve the privilege. So I say, if you want to keep coming to my house, you will treat me. And I'm not asking for the end of the world here. I'm asking you to be polite. I'm asking you to be kind. And I'm asking you to use your words and,
And somebody looking from the outside looking in thinks this may sound like, again, from an ego perspective, and it's not. It's nothing about punishment or revenge or anything. It's you putting your feet in drawing the line in the sand, if you will, and no, you're not crossing this, because you are. It's your house to pay for it. What's that?
Mine in this. My lines are very clear. My boundaries are very solid. It's not a freaking sand line. This is where this is a no, and it's not tolerable and it's not acceptable, and it's no. And I know a narcissist will never apologize. So I'm not asking for an apology. So I simply said, you can't come to my house anymore. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
we're going to stop there. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to explain yourself.
No, absolutely not. I don't owe anyone an explanation for whatever my boundary is. Your boundary is based on rights that belongs to you. And if you're surrounded by people, now, if you're surrounded by people and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get rid of everybody, there'll be nobody left. You're making room and you're making space for the good people to come in. While you're surrounded by bad people, see, this is good people. I get my drink delivered. While you're surrounded by all these bad people who are sucking your energy, yes.
So Kevin says it's not a sand line, it's a freaking kryptonite wall. LOL.
That's right. But you create space. And once you create space and you start having boundaries, can someone bring that narcissist behavior out in you? In order to be a narcissist, it has to happen at a really young age. So you don't just become a narcissist at 35. It doesn't happen, And laying boundaries doesn't make you a narcissist either. It just makes you a good person.
Can they push us to bring out bad qualities that we may not like in ourselves? I would say yes. But they're not doing it. It's a situation that we're in and falling prey to the situation and relationship that we're in. Because I've often said, I don't like myself when I'm around the narcissist I'm around, because it brings out parts in me that I don't like. But it's a defense mechanism. That's why I need this book, and we all do. We only got 4 minutes left, Sonya. I'm hoping you're going to come back on and talk about this, because everybody here has said this is such a fantastic topic. People have so many questions, so I would love to have you back on, and then we'll have everything firmed up and the link and the whole bit. Would you be open to that?
Sure, but the book,
the healing, because people need
out. The book will be available just in 2 weeks, July 21st, where the editor was backed up, and now Amazon is taking a little longer to approve. So I don't know. I think a lot of books come out in the summer to hit all these summer reading people. So the name of the book is Narcissism: The 12 Steps to Successfully Heal and Flourish from Narcissistic Abuse. Mm-hmm. So, you know,
where can they buy it? Where can they buy it, Sonya?
You know what? The easiest place is Amazon. So whatever country you're in, it's worldwide. So you can Amazon Asia, Amazon UK, Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Australia. It's everywhere. So it's just we're just waiting for the final check that Amazon does, and I was hoping it'd be ready for tonight, but I checked before the show and it was.
I was impressed. She messaged me, what was it, Thursday? And it was like, I knew you were writing this book. We've had this planned a long time. But the thing is, she got everything done. But that's Sonya. She tells you she's going to do something. She does it. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I am going to have Sonya on regularly throughout the year. There's a few people I do that with, but she's such a fountain of knowledge and so connected to spirit and healing. And this book was really needed, though. Like, I think it's really needed because
but mm-hmm. At the same time, you know, because it was so close to my life, that it was hard. I had to put it together, and I wanted to be in a place where I can say I'm healed, I'm doing great, life is fantastic. And you know, one of the steps is now that you've cleaned all the garbage, before you start putting just anything in your house, right? Ask yourself, do I need this? So you meet someone new. Do I need you in my life? What do we have to exchange? What is this relationship worth to either of us? And I wanted to be in a point where I can say I am surrounded by loving people, the kindness and the support that I'm getting. People believe in me. Like, I've never had that before. Like, I have a roommate, and she's my business partner. She's my roommate. She's my best friend. She's my family friend. But we're having fun together. But, you know, the reason why she came into my life was to teach me to trust humanity again, and allow me to, I mean, it took me 2 years before I could get over her moving in. Because I was like, but the second she moves in, is she going to change? Because that's what happens with a narcissist.
That's what you expect, because that's what we've had, right? Like I said, so I don't know if I trust myself, and I eventually, you know, I'd rather be alone. Like, really, like, because I have a busy, full, happy life, because I've just decided that I'm going to forge ahead. I need to do what I need to do. And I have no interest in being in another relationship, maybe one day. But again, I think that was very important. And we'll leave on that, Sonya, is what can this person bring to the table so that it's 50-50, right? And bringing good things of, like, there's equal, you know what I mean? Like equal energy exchange, but good things, joy, happiness, all these things in your life, right?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm still single, but I live a full life. And I think that you have to differentiate with single and lonely. I'm not lonely. I'm busy. I'm doing stuff that I'm completely passionate about. I'm supported in that. You don't have to be alone to not face another narcissist, but you have to rebuild yourself first. And but because I see clearly now when I meet people, I just go, nope, sorry, no thanks. I'm not going there. I'm not interested in that. And I'm okay with that, because I know my worth now. I know who I am. I know my son told me, he says, you're too picky. I said, I'm not picky. I know what I want. I know what I'll tolerate. And I know that this bullshit I don't need in my life. So I'd rather be a single, but I'm not alone, because I got friends. I got people, and I have
a full life. I'm so sorry, you guys. We've got to leave you here. But so you guys can also get a hold of Sonya on sonyaroy.com. She's the one I've been talking about that's done Psych K, that I can now feel my right foot that I couldn't feel for 30 years. She's got so many books. You guys got to check out her podcast. They're pre-recorded. There is so much knowledge that you've been sharing with the world. So I will have her back on, as Z-Sun Dragon or Kevin says, yes, the Angel Rock chat loves Sonya's energy. We certainly do. I want to tell you guys, if you ever want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on facebook.com/the Angel Rock. I am working on getting a domain name and all in one-stop shopping, so you can book, you can pay, you can do all that. So I'm working on that right now, but the fastest, easiest way to get a hold of me is Facebook Messenger or any social media platform under the Angel Rock or Lorilei Potvin. I have 2 groups on Facebook: Paranormal University for all things paranormal, the Angel Rocker Tribe for more things spiritual. Don't forget to join us. We'll see you on Thursday with the thing at the foot of the bed with David Hansel at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then next Monday, I forgot to check who's coming. I think, I'm not sure, but you guys know it's going to be somebody awesome. You know what, Spirit always great guests. They always do it. I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for all of you. I send you all so much love and light, and stay spooky. We will see you Thursday and next Monday. Thank you again, Sonya.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, she'll be back, guys. So you get your questions ready, and don't forget, buy this book. If you guys you've been through something with a narcissist, I'm telling you, I'm going to be buying it myself. I don't usually say this to people, but buy this book if you've been through a narcissistic relationship. All right, love y'all. We'll see you soon.